Welcome. I'm John Yoder, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of our church. We welcome you today, and especially our visitors who are here with us, as well as those joining us on our live stream. We encourage you to find out more about us by visiting our website. We'd also invite you to register on our virtual guest book, which you can find on our homepage under the banner Welcome. If you do, we'll send you our weekly newsletter and Zoom links to our virtual events. You're welcome to join in any of our events and activities. For all of you here in person today, please join us for coffee, cookies, and conversation in the courtyard after the service. There's a special table in the courtyard to welcome visitors and share information. Today, during Reverend Jay's summer break, we're very fortunate to have Reverend Amy Petrie Shaw in the pulpit. Amy grew up in rural Kentucky. She's been a professor, a nurse, executive, artist, and writer. She currently serves as the interim minister for the UU congregation of Venice, Florida, where she lives with her beloved friend Nancy and 3 cats. Thank you for being with us today, Amy. Our musicians today are Jeremy Douglas, our pianist, and singers Lisa and Nick Bond. Lisa was a member here 20 years ago and is a lifelong UU. Thanks to each of you for being with us today. Let's rise now again and join together in singing a song I grew up with, Wake Now My Senses. Our opening reading today is entitled, Come Into This Place, by Reverend Rebecca Edmiston Lang. Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes. For here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place. Come and let us worship. Now join me together as we recite the words on the screen as we light our chalice together. We light our chalice today. Normally, this would be our time for all ages, part of the sermon we all look forward to, but everybody deserves a vacation, and Catherine Bonner is on one today. So we miss her, and we look forward to her return next week.
Certainly is nice to be here today. This place is one of our homes, one of our UU homes.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. Though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. And when the night is cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me. Shine until tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of music. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be.
Some walls are made of stone. Sometimes we build our own. Some walls will stand for years, and some wash away with tears. Some walls are lined with gold, where some hearts stay safe and cold. Some walls are made from doubt, holding in and keeping out. If there's
Any hope for love at all?
some walls must fall. Some walls are built on pride. Some keep the child inside. Some walls are built in fear that love let go will disappear. If there's any hope for love at all, some walls must fall. How will you ever know what might be found?
How will you ever know?
Till you let the walls come tumbling down. If there's any hope for love at all, some walls
must fall.
If there's
Any hope for love at all?
some walls
must fall.
Thank you.
Let Go of Who You Think You're Supposed to Be and Embrace Who You Are by Brene Brown. Wholehearted living is not a one-time choice. It is a process. In fact, I believe it's the journey of a lifetime. My goal is to bring awareness and clarity to the constellation of choices that lead to wholeheartedness and to share what I've learned from many, many people who have dedicated themselves to living and loving with their whole hearts. Before embarking on any journey, including this one, it's important to talk about what we need to bring along. What does it take to live and love from a place of worthiness? How do we embrace imperfection? How do we cultivate what we need and let go of the things that are holding us back? The answers to all of these questions are courage, compassion, and connection, the tools we need to work our way through our journey. If you're thinking, great, I just need to be a superhero to fight perfectionism, I understand. Courage, compassion, and connection seem like big, lofty goals, but in reality, they are daily practices that, when exercised enough, become these incredible gifts in our lives. And the good news is that our vulnerabilities are what force us to call upon these amazing tools. Because we're human and so beautifully imperfect, we get to practice with our tools on a daily basis. In this way, courage, compassion, and connection become gifts, the gifts of imperfection. Join me now as we spend a moment in silence and think about these words. It's time for our offering now. For those online or those here on your cell phone, there's a link to donate in the description of the YouTube video or on our website right under the description of today's service. Please be as generous as you can. Let this sacred time begin.
Our second reading today is from Present Over Perfect by Shauna Nyquist and Brene Brown. Who told me that keeping everything organized would deliver happiness? What a weird prescription for happiness. Why do I think managing our possessions in a meaningful way is a meaningful way of spending my time? Why do I think clean countertops means anything at all? Well, certainly my Dutch roots might have something to do with it, and my Midwestern upbringing. And I know that activity, any activity, keeps me from feeling. So that becomes a drug. I'll run circles around this house, folding clothes and closing cabinets, sweeping and tending things, never allowing myself to feel an ache. Which brings us literally to the heart of the conversation. The heart, the cavernous ache. Am I loved? Am I loved? Does someone see me? Do I matter? Am I safe? For most of my life, I've answered these questions with theological abstractions, and then filled up any remaining uncertainty with noise and motion and experiences. You can make a drug a way to anesthetize yourself out of anything. Working out, binge watching TV, working, having sex, shopping, volunteering, cleaning, dieting. Anything can keep you from feeling pain for a while, because that's what drugs do. And like a drug, over time, shopping or TV or work or whatever will make you less and less able to connect to the things that matter, like your own heart and the people you love. Because that's another thing drugs do, they isolate you. Most of us have a handful of these drugs. It's terrifying to think of living without them. It's terrifying, wildly unprotected, vulnerable, staring our wounds right in the face. But this is where we grow. This is where we learn. This is where our lives actually begin to change.
I am open, I am willing to be hopeless, would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. There is hurting in my family. There is sorrow in my town.
There is panic all across the nation. There is wailing the whole world round. I am open, I am willing to be hopeless, would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. May
the children see more clearly.
May the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though it burns our eyes. I am open, I am willing to be hopeless. Would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. Give me a mighty oak to hold my confusion. Give me a desert to hold my fears.
Give me a sunset to hold my wonder. Give me an ocean to hold my tears. I am open, I am willing to be hopeless. Would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change, and so to honor those who go before us. Lift us up to the light of change.
Thank you.
Every story has to start somewhere. So I'm going to start at the beginning. Do you remember the first time that you deliberately lied to a grown-up? Now for me, well, it was a sordid tale involving me standing there with my jaw bulging out to here and a bunch of powdered sugar all over my grimy little mitts, which also still held the bubblegum wrapper. And I said with all the dignity that I could muster, "Why, no, I don't have gum in my mouth. Why do you ask?" For you, maybe you were the one who broke the window. Or you stood there with paint smeared on your shirt and shoes, looking at the green footprints and swearing you had absolutely no idea how they could have happened. Wasn't me. Your parents may have stared at you with love and disappointment. Mine swear it was surprise that I actually was that bad of a liar. They may have said, "Give it up. We know it was you." Now, at the time, I was absolutely dismayed that I had been seen covered in sugar, showing off my love for bubble gum. I wanted to disappear. Now, the next time I got my hands on that wad of bubble gum, I got away with it, because I had figured out how to lie, or at least how to hide the evidence, until it ended up in my hair. But new human beings, babies, they don't know how to lie. They don't know how to hide. For any of you who've ever had a child that you have watched pee on its own head, babies have no shame whatsoever. What you see is what you get. They are totally themselves. In the Tanakh, or the Hebrew Bible, there are two characters that start the story off, Adam and Eve, the mythological first people, and they also have this amazing vulnerability. They are naked, they are unconcerned, they are hanging out in the garden together. They're like a baby. And in that story, their God is there with them in that forest, in that garden, walking among the trees with them. And their God tells them there's only one rule, just one. Don't eat from the tree which will give you the knowledge of good and evil. And like any other children, like any other human, as soon as God or mom or dad turns their back, they head for the tree, grab a piece of fruit, and they eat. And there they are with their sticky little hands and their sticky little lips and their eyes open wide, and they realize that they are naked. So they hide, and they wait. They sew together leaves to cover their bits, which they have just realized are out in the open, and they hide some more. And their God calls out, Ika, Ika, which means, where are you? And Adam must have been brighter than he looked. He realized that God wasn't asking, what bush are you hiding in? Adam went for the gold. He said, I heard your voice, and I was afraid because I knew that I was naked, so I hid. And God tapped its toe a bit and said, how did you know? Who told you you were naked? Like any 3-year-old who has just realized that there is an inner and an outer world, Adam hid first his bits, then his whole body, then his guilt. He pointed to Eve and said, she made me do it. And being no dummy, Eve pointed to the snake nearby and said, yeah, him, he made me do it. That first mistake, if you will, which some religions call a sin, that first sin that Judaism and Christianity and Islam all recognize, wasn't murder or rape or even theft. Adam wasn't scared because he stole a piece of fruit. I was afraid because I was naked. I was afraid that you would see me. I was ashamed of what I was showing the world. I was ashamed you would see I had screwed up. This story is about the moment when relationship is damaged, when covenant is broken, and trust gets shattered. It's also about that moment when someone you thought you knew goes and does something, and you look at them, and you find yourself asking, Ika, where are you? Who are you? Who's the real you behind your actions? As a child, you believe, and some of you may remember this, you remember believing that your mom knew everything you were thinking? I'm convinced my mother still does. As a child, there's no hiding. But as we get older, that kind of nudity becomes unbearable. And we put on layer after layer after layer to hide that nakedness. And I'm absolutely fascinated by the differences in this story between some forms of Judaism and Christianity. Now, in the Christian text, once God realizes, their God realizes what Adam and Eve have done, God itself makes them garments of skin to replace their leaves. And this is taken to mean that God used animal hides. That's heartbreaking. It's an act that says the parent has now recognized that the child has entered into a permanent state of vulnerability, that they are now aware of their vulnerability and they want to hide it, and the parent is okay with that. Think about this for a minute. It's like your kid coming home and saying, someone said I was ugly, and you not saying, honey, you are perfectly imperfect just the way you are, but instead saying, that's okay, sweetheart, we'll go down to the 5 and dime and I'll buy you a mask. That version isn't the one I want to talk about. The Hasidic Jewish version of this story is very different. It says that garments of skin was a literal phrase, that prior to that point, Adam and Eve were not flesh and blood, that they were only inner light. In that moment, the moment of clothing souls in flesh, humanity became a physical creation, and that physical creation is in and of itself a lie. It caused humans to forget or obscure their own inner sacredness and become so accustomed to hiding in their own flesh that they could not see the sacred fire in themselves or others. Their actions caused by their physical bodies were a lie, a way of coping with environment and culture and physical situation that in no way reflected the sacred fire underneath. This is the opposite of the Christian version. In the Hasidic version, God didn't forget that holy fire lived in every human. God tried to let them know that God wanted them to be seen. Aika, where are you? Even knowing they had eaten, God wanted to see them. Even mistaken, even embarrassed, even foolish. Show yourselves, be naked and honest with me, trust me. I'll dress you up for your sake because you're worried, but let me see the real you. Aika, where are you? The spirit of life, the spirit of humanity, the divine of our hearts, however we identify it, calls out to us to ask that same question of everybody we meet. Aika, where are you? Not realistically, I understand you might be standing right there. But metaphorically, where are you? Who is the being of sacred fire under the covering of circumstance and physicality? We're called to ask this to the prisoner in the new Jim Crow jail, to ask it to the undocumented immigrant and the substance abuser and the scared and the tired and the all screwed up, to the impossibly perfect and the rich and famous. We're called to ask it to the saints and the sinners and everyone in between. Aika, who are you? Because each child is a holy child, made up of divine light, covered in garments of skin. And as holy children ourselves, it's our responsibility to call one another, to remain in honest relationship, to see the inner light burning, and to let our own light show. Where are you? Where have you been? How does it feel to come from under the bushes, to get caught with your fig leaves down and your heart in your throat? How does it feel to show yourself honestly to other human beings? To know that you can be seen with compassion and that what you have done, all the things that have taught you that you were naked, are not beyond understanding. Think about that for a minute. How does it feel to know that your mistakes, no matter how bad, they don't define you? Your errors aren't your sum total. Your body is a hiding place for the divine. Under the clothing of skin you're wearing, you're made of fire And that nakedness is awesome. Now, Adam and Eve, they hid together. Think about that for a sec. They weren't ashamed of being seen by one another. Each of them knew that the other one had messed up equally as badly as they had. It's easy to avoid guilt and shame when you feel like everyone else is as stained as you are. But when somebody we see as clean has showed up, or when someone you think that's better, that's when we get afraid. That's when we hide. To learn to be naked, we need to experience a witness filled with compassion, filled with love. We need to experience another human being who sees us. And we need them to see us exactly as we are. To see us with the bubble gum in our cheek, the chocolate on our hands, the paint on our shoes. Who knows that our screw-ups are not all of who we are. We need a witness who won't let us hide, who mirrors our light back to us. Ika, where are you? And I'll tell you, when I was 20, I had no safe place to live. I had very little food. I was in the university, and it had closed for winter break. I hadn't thought much about that. But there was nowhere to go. It meant I couldn't even collect food scraps from the dining hall, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I wasn't honestly sure I cared anymore. Life was a little rough back then. And like most of the other women who lived on the streets, I had learned quickly that it just wasn't safe to curl up and go to sleep somewhere. So we used to sit, picture this, a wall out behind a thriftway. Sometimes there'd be 2 or 3 of us, sometimes 6 or 10. We'd sit there through most of the night because it was safe. The store would put out its out-of-date food and bread on a table to keep people from dumpster diving, but some people would dive anyway. And we would sit and we would smoke and we would talk and we would laugh. Sometimes there'd be a bottle. Sometimes the security guard would come out and chase us off, and I'd put on my Sony Walkman. You remember those? Slam my Sony Walkman on my head, and I would stomp away till he went inside, and then I'd stomp right back and go back to sitting on the wall. Sometimes he'd chase us 5 and 6 times a night. But a few days before Christmas, it was very, very cold. And finally, there were only 2 of us left on that wall. The shelters were full, and we didn't have anywhere else to go. I was miserably thin back then, wearing a fleece-lined jean jacket over 2 or 3 shirts and a pair of jeans and loafers with no socks. My friend had on high heels, and she had wrapped a man's white cotton shirt around her head to keep it warm. And around 3 a.m., the security guard came out, that same middle-aged black guy that chased us 6 times a night. And he came out to chase us, except this time he really looked at us. We weren't dangerous. We weren't monsters. We weren't drug addicts that were a danger to other people in that moment. I was Middle Eastern. She was white. Ika, where are you? We were 2 human beings, 2 scared and tired kids, beaten up, sort of starving, a long way from home. And he went back inside and he came out with some hot chocolate. And he asked our names and he asked why we were there. He asked about my Sony Walkman and why he hadn't seen it lately. And when he found out I was out of batteries, he went and got me some. Got us some food, and then he opened up his car and he told us we could sleep there for the night out of the storm. Ika, where are you? Where have you been? And in that moment of being seen, really seen, cared for as a human being, I could see a flash of my own fire reflected in this wonderful, blazing man. I saw that I still mattered. It feels safer to hide our light. It hurts to show the truth of who we are. It's embarrassing and vulnerable and naked and raw. It hurts to show people what a mess we are when we screw up. But deep peace comes with exposing our fire, with daring to shine. And we come together in this place, in our congregations, as a community to look at one another in all our blazing and amazing sacredness. We come together to witness one another in our nakedness and to love one another anyway. And we're called to go out into the world and to do the same thing for our neighbors and to remember that everyone is our neighbor, to see them one life at a time. Ika, where are you? We can't spit out the fruit of the tree. We'll always know what we have done, where we have been. That doesn't mean we have to wear it forever. We can choose to make it right. Take off the garment of skins that you put on. Wear your light. See the light in other people. You are not your circumstances. You're not every error you have made. You're not your job or your wealth or your poverty or 1,000 other things. You are holy, and so are the rest of us, and we're called to honor that light. And you will probably never, ever hear this in a church again. But when you leave here, go forth and be naked. Amen. I'd like to ask you all to rise as you are willing and able in body or spirit, and join me in our closing hymn, number 168, One More Step. The service is over, and now your service begins. Take the warm candle of your soul and light your world. Build a world which welcomes the naked. Peace, ashe, and may it be so. We extinguish our chalice with these words from Hope Continues by Kevin Jargo. We extinguish our chalice, but hope continues, uncertain and true, like candlelight, ready to spark again. All is not lost. Amen.